Hello, I'm Miami Autism Dad Victor Antunez, the Inclusive My Realtor, and this is the Autism Podcast at Miami's Community Newspapers. Today we're talking about Able United with Phoebe, who is also an autism mom, and you're an Able United ambassador.
Yes.
So let's talk about Able United. Exactly what is that, Phoebe?
Okay. Thanks for having me, Victor.
Thank you
nice
for
to see
being
you
here.
again.
Very important topic.
I think it's interesting to talk about the legislation and how Able United even came about. So in 2014, there was an act passed in Congress called the Able Act.
Florida Congress or
No,
Congress?
federal.
Congress?
This is a federal law. And ABLE stands for Achieving a Better Life Experience. And it was sort of grassroots, started by parents just like you and me, worried about their children when they're aging out. How are they going to financially support themselves? Why, in order to get services like Medicaid and Social Security, do you have to have less than $2,000 to your name? A lot of people don't know that. Once our kids become adults, their services are based on their income. You sort of partner that with low job opportunities for people with disabilities. And so they basically have this cap of $2,000 in assets to your name in order to receive, the healthcare that they need and other services. So the ABLE Act was passed to allow each state to develop their own savings and investment program for people with disabilities. So Florida's is called Able United. So that's our state's ABLE program. We were one of the first states to open an account. So the act was passed in 2014. I believe Able United was formed in 2015. Mm-hmm. And it's a support partner of the Florida prepaid. So the same money they're managing for Florida prepaid college is where they're managing the Able United money. So
now, for the benefits, though, you can have your ABLE, but you're still capped at $2,000, right?
No, so that's the difference. The Able United is a protected account, so the IRS knows about it, Social Security knows about it.
No, I mean that capped at $2,000 with the ABLE. I'm saying outside of the ABLE.
Outside the ABLE, correct. So basically, what people were finding was, I can't just leave money directly to my disabled child, or a grandparent shouldn't leave money, because as soon as that happens, they have to spend all that money down to basically be at poverty level again, to then start receiving their benefits. And we all know medical issues with our children are very, very costly. Social Security helps with housing if they're ever to live in a group home. So the ABLE account is sort of this protected account. So you have your ABLE account that family, friends are allowed to contribute to, and then you have let's say the account maybe that you're receiving Social Security. So this ABLE account is not considered an asset when qualifying for benefits.
Yeah. You know what, that $2,000, I knew about that. What I always thought about that is that you make liars out of people, because they got to find creative ways of hiding the money.
Right. And this is crazy. For this community, we should be supporting them as best as possible. The $2,000 amount is so archaic. I don't know when they're going to revisit that. Hopefully they do.
Be in where that would make
exactly.
sense.
And also, nobody's getting $2,000 in Social Security, so it's under $24,000 a year that these people are getting. How nobody's living on that.
No.
So it's the idea is to kind of create some sort of independence, dignity, a little bit of autonomy for the person with disability. So these accounts are in their name, whether they're managed by themselves, self-advocates, or a parent, or authorized legal representative. I'm my son's account administrator, but we can, you can use the funds for any kind of qualified living expense. So it's basically to kind of like help boost them up a little from, in addition to the benefits that they're receiving.
Mm-hmm. And you've been an ambassador now for ABLE for 10 years?
6. So if ABLE was founded in 2015. Yeah. So we were around one of the first account holders. I don't want to say first, but probably by the end of 2015. My mom was raised in Connecticut. She's was a CPA and a financial planner. And so, when my son was diagnosed and you're kind of holding your child, like, what am I going to do? She's in my ear. How are you going to financially support him for the rest of his life? So, that was always kind of like her concern. She raised us 3 girls to be financially independent. And so I attended an event at FIU, and it was, I feel like it was like a special needs trust attorney, a financial advisor, and then this guy from ABLE. And so went home, told my mom about it. I don't know what that is. We don't have that in Connecticut. And so as we started researching it more and more, we realized, okay, this is a really important program. It's really important that we stress it's a nonprofit. I'm an ambassador, volunteer. There are no fees. There is no minimum contribution. There is no taxes on your earnings, and then there's no taxes on any withdrawal that you take. So it's just an investment account like you and I would have, but you're not paying capital gains on it, and it's ignored as an asset when considering benefits.
Is there a limit to how much you can have in there?
The contribution is sort of tied into the gift tax credit. So this year you can contribute up to $19,000. Multiple people can contribute. You can create a gifting page that has your child's name, and then you can have up to $100,000 in it if you are receiving SSI, and you can have up to $500,000 in it if you are not.
Medical care is getting more and more expensive,
right,
and kids are having better life expectancies.
Right.
That's a fact. So let's take $100,000. That's not going to go very far.
Right.
So why did they cap it at that? And is there a push to uncap it?
That cap is for SSI. So, again, the SSI cap on sits as $2,000. So now they're giving a cap in your ABLE account. I can't answer for that. I wish, yes, you're right. First of all, everybody working for ABLE is constantly fighting and advocating to make changes. So even since I've been there, it went from $14,000 minimum to $19,000. I think even the cap for Social Security has been increased. They just increased the age of diagnoses. So it used to be age of before 26, you had to receive your diagnosis, which is multiple different disabilities. So you can go on the website and see if your child or your diagnosis is there. And then this last year, January 2026, they passed the Age Adjustment Act, which means that your diagnosis can be before the age of 46, which is really important, especially for people with mental health issues. Those are all considered qualified diagnoses. A lot of people with mental health, it doesn't come out until their late 20s or early 30s. The cap for Social Security, we wish it was higher, but it's not, and then the cap at $500,000 is really for people that are working, making more than $2,000, so they can't receive Social Security, but then not making enough to really have a sort of quality of life.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's almost like the tax code. It's just impossibly complicated.
Yeah.
Because you're just juggling so many balls. And if you drop one of them, you can find yourself in a really bad position.
Right. Yeah. So this is design. It's not solving all of our financial, problems. I think you and I spoke before this podcast about attorneys for special needs trust. You ideally want to have both. But most S&T attorneys will say open an ABLE account first. Why? Because it's free. There's no fees. You're earning tax free. And it's also just a more, I guess, easier liquid way of using the money to spend on, living expenses. S&Ts can also fund an ABLE account, but a special needs trust can also be, I can leave my home to the trust. And then, and so there can be more legacy sort of inheritances, things like that.
Now, you said that they're a nonprofit. Just explain that.
How ABLE Unites. So it's a nonprofit run by the state of Florida. So
by the state of Florida.
Yeah. So it's a direct support of the 529 college plan. So that's why I say that, because I think we all know when our kids are diagnosed and the journey that we go through. My son's 17. I can't even remember half of the schools that he went to or all the therapies he did. But that's all you're worried about. You're trying to get through the day. You're trying to help your child not be in pain or not be frustrated or get sleep through the night or you're just trying to help your child. And so, thinking about finances is very stressful. And obviously we know there's bad apples and, people that can take advantage. And so this is a nonprofit run by the state of Florida to help our citizens with disabilities have a better quality of life and have a little bit of an advantage by having an investment account where it's tax-free, and it also allows you to maintain your benefits.
I bet there's a lot of parents listening right now that have never heard of ABLE United.
Right.
How are you getting the word out?
So I've done everything from training the staff at CARD. I do a lot of either webinars or in-person trainings for parent-to-parent for families, a lot of autism walks, a lot of fairs, a lot of schools, parent groups. So whatever way we can. I've even, gone on the news before and talked about it. It's a really important program. I I barely have any time to do it, but I do it because people need to know. And again, it's free to open. There's no fees. So it really doesn't make sense. And I feel like the earlier you know, the more you can invest money in there and the more you can earn and just kind of help our kids. So in my case, my son, I believe, was 6 when we opened the account. And there's, different portfolios you can choose. I'm lucky my mom is, like I said, a financial planner. So she was able to say, let's choose growth because you're not going to touch the money for a while. Now he's coming up on guardianship. So I use the money to open an S&T for him, special needs trust. I'll use it for guardianship. You can use it for, expensive summer camps or any kind of therapies that, maybe aren't covered by insurance. But again, those types of decisions are up to the individual family. Maybe they just want to choose an FDIC savings account. Won't have a lot of interest, but it's protected. But yeah, so that's kind of how I get the word out.
Now, CARD, for people who don't know, is the Center for Autism and Related Disabilities.
Right.
They have counselors that they'll set you up with for free.
Right.
So, do they help people CARD with, manage the SSI, SSDI, ABLE, make sure you're not getting in trouble with that?
I used CARD when my son was much younger. I believe they should. I know parent to parent can also connect you. So when I was putting my son on the Medicaid waiver list, I reached out to parent. They connect you with somebody from APD. There's so many acronyms.
Agency for Persons with Disabilities.
And then I think throughout the years, they would send someone to do consistent evaluations of my son, and we all know the Medicaid waiver wait list is miles long, but you want to get on it early. So yeah, I would believe, I don't know if CARD specifically can counsel you on Social Security, but they can probably connect you with who you're supposed to talk to. That'd be interesting to hear. I'm up to figure that out soon.
That'd be good to know.
Yeah, it'd be good to know. Parent to parent as well. We'll definitely help you with that.
Also, the Advocacy Network on Disabilities will help you as well.
Right.
Now, I have a lot of conversations, so I probably know more than the average autism dad.
Right.
But here's what's crazy. Like, there's these big groups like CARD that you just assume everybody knows about them.
Right.
But I was talking to an autism grandma. She's been in Miami all her life.
Right.
She's like in her mid-60s, maybe 70. Never heard of CARD.
Right.
And you just assume a lot of stuff.
Right.
Like even like the APD. I've met people that have never heard of APD.
Right.
And their kids are severe enough where they would qualify.
Oh yeah. No crisis or just needing at-home help. I mean, there's definitely, even at my son's school right now, there's a lot of parents that didn't realize their son qualified for Medicaid waiver, was in a crisis situation. So, I try to help them. You typically will help them go with parent to parent because I have contacts there. But yeah, there's it's overwhelming, and I think a lot of there's so many smaller organizations as well. And so last year I did a program called LEND. I don't know if you've heard of that at University of Miami. It's Leadership, Education, Neurodevelopmental Disabilities. And it's a program under a group called AUCD, so American University Centers for Disabilities. They were founded by JFK and his sister. Given, I think they had an older sister with
with Down syndrome.
It was Down syndrome, and they gave her a lobotomy or something. She was neurodevelopmentally disabled.
And that's where Special Olympics came from.
Right, exactly. His sister, right. So JFK said we should have university systems in every state that kind of bring in social workers, parents, caregivers, doctors, residents, and you kind of learn, so that everybody's getting everybody else's perspective. The doctor's giving me their perspective when they receive my son, let's say. I'm giving them my perspective, what happens before and after their appointment. And so we work on, it's about like a month of classes, but then you do rotations. So I do rotations around different things under Mailmen. So like the FAST lab, which is the assistive technology lab, Family Navigator, helping families get resources they need. And so when I started that program, a lot of it was telling the doctors, when you diagnose our kids and then you say they need speech therapy, they need OT, and then you hand us these long lists, almost all of them are defunct, or they're not even, or they have such a long wait list, there's no way. And so, a lot of it, that I find I wish things were a little bit more consolidated, or like all of these really small nonprofits could like join together, because every one of them has a wait list, and it's really difficult, for parents. And imagine you took a bus there with your disabled child. Now you work 3 jobs, and now you're handed this long list. It just becomes completely overwhelming. So there's definitely resources of people that can help get you in. I think I mentioned to you and your colleague here, Family Navigator at Mailman is a great resource. So if it just becomes too overwhelming and you don't have the time off work to call all these agencies to find, they'll help you and help place you. And same with parent to parent, same with card.
Parent to parent, card, Autism Network.
Yeah.
It's interesting you say about people giving information with out of date information.
Right, it's the
like
worst.
I still see like the Gardner like the Gardner Scholarship being mentioned. And that's been gone for years now.
I mean, and my son had McKay because he was in private school and I was in charter, and everybody's like, that's gone. And I don't even know what the new one is.
Step up.
Step up, right, step up. Yeah, so that also, it's just a lot, and I always say you need a PhD in acronyms just to learn what the heck is going on with all of these different organizations. And, you need a whole other lifetime of time away from work to even call or figure out what the best process is. So, and my hope for Florida also is that they start creating teams for our kids. So you're not going to one therapist that won't talk to the other therapist, and then they won't agree on a plan. So I know they're working on a model at Medicaid, but it's really, really important. I think, just having everybody have communication with each other.
And it's hard.
It's really hard because
the
parent ends up being that person.
Yeah. And then with our kids, especially if you're a single parent, you go from crisis to crisis to crisis. And then like stuff like Able, it's extra. You're like, man, I can't.
Right.
You're like, deal with this.
Right. Exactly.
I'm talking about that. So it's just so hard. So like a long time ago, I realized you can't judge anybody in this world.
No.
Because you don't know what they're going through.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's just one thing can just be like over, just too much. I remember my son, I think you and I talked about this. I say non-speaking, and then we said we liked non-conversationalist because he can speak. It's just not his chosen method of communication. And he's very apraxic. So
what is apraxic?
It's a motor, brain sort of motor diagnosis, I guess, that makes it difficult to speak. So if you say like, say this word, he'll try to say it, and it would be very difficult. You can see working really hard. Yeah. So a lot of it, it's basically motor development. So because he can't regulate his body, it's very difficult for him to speak independently. But yeah, I remember speech therapy being just awful. They put him in this chair with a lock on it, and where he couldn't get out of it. And so, at
a school?
No, it was like a therapist that you pay for, speech therapy out of school.
What year was this?
This is years ago. That's what they had. I don't know if they still have it, but it was this little chair, and it had his tray over it. So he'd be locked in, and he would just lose his mind. And so I remember I took him up to Yale Child Study. My parents lived outside New Haven. And I said, they said, what do you want to do? And it was great. I had a team, basically evaluate him over 3 days. And then we all sit at a table and talk about it. And I said, I want to fire a speech therapy, but I feel crazy. He doesn't speak. So how? And they said, do it. Because it's not as making things worse for him. And we just have to figure out a different way to help him communicate. And it ended up being Proloquo Go, which is an app, and then LAMP. And now I'm doing Spelling to Communicate. But you have to really, we don't need to burden these kids with extra stress, because all it's doing is reflecting back on us. Now we're stressed watching them be stressed. And then how can we, again, like you said, even think about something like Able United and saving money. So yeah, we all have a lot going on when it comes to these kids.
Yeah, and I think it's so important that the parents realize that a lot of experts out there aren't really experts, at least not in your kid. Right. So if they're going to lock down your kid and they're going bananas, it's like, you as the parent can say, you know what? No.
Exactly. You met one kid with autism, you've met one kid with autism. That's the saying. Everybody's different. We've got to just use our gut, I guess.
And you've met one expert.
You've met one expert. Right?
Yeah, they might not be the expert.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. I can tell you, like with my autistic daughter and my neurotypical boy, we've fired educators. We've changed schools. Right. Because this whole thing, like, they're the experts, they're the professionals, they have the degrees. Like, but you know what? Sometimes
it's not working for your kid.
It's not working for my kid.
Yeah.
It's interesting. This reminds me, I had a conversation with a friend of mine that his boy goes to a school.
Okay.
Loves the school. He said that school turned his boy around, just like, his boys, he's autistic. He was also born premature, a lot of developmental disabilities. And he said that school is just like metamorphosized my boy.
Amazing.
And then I was talking to a mom, and she's like, I hate that school. My boy went there.
Oh, yeah.
He didn't like, and she had nothing good to say about the school. It's like, who's right? They're both right.
Right. Exactly.
Because it might be, it might be the year you went, the teacher you had. I don't know what it is.
It's trial and error. I mean,
Totally.
Everything. I think my son Gunnar went to 7 schools, I think. Yeah. And didn't like any of them. They were all private, really struggled. I hired an ABA shadow to attend school with him. And all this, I don't want to say any of the schools were bad. They just weren't working for him. He had a lot of behaviors and I think he felt like he was doing something wrong at every school. And now he's at a school with a lot of behaviors and loves going. So, it's kind of half a dozen one or the other. You just have to kind of keep trying and it'll work out.
Yeah. I'm going to say that probably 100% of the people I've met in this world are sincere.
Yeah.
And then, but the thing is, like, he's been through 7 schools. There are probably 7 really good schools for somebody.
Exactly.
Just not for Gunnar.
Just not for him. Yeah.
Yeah. So like parents, they need to take, reviews you might see online or even conversations like that mom. I hate that school. Then my friend is like, I love that school.
Right.
They're both right.
They're both right. Exactly.
They're both right.
Yeah.
Now, before we get too far away, earlier you mentioned the 529 college. What was that about?
So the 529 college plan, or Florida prepaid, excuse me,
okay,
is
prepaid,
yeah. So it's a direct support of Florida prepaid, but you can roll over your Florida prepaid or your 529 college plan into an ABLE account. So that's really important because a lot of us, maybe when my son was born, I put money into a 529 college plan for him. Kept putting money into it even after his diagnosis, maybe till his 6 or 7, and thought, okay, I don't know if that's going to be something that will happen for him. Who am I going to use it for? And so he's my only child. And so, I thought, okay, well, if my little sister has a child, she can have this money for their school. And then the ABLE accounts came about and they said, no, I can actually take that money, put it into ABLE. Now I can use it for education if that happens, but also for qualified living expenses, for assistive technology, for any kind of therapies, for any kind of anything. So you're able to use the money for more in an ABLE account, but also you can still use it for education.
And there was no penalty? No
penalty.
Now, I'm going to just make like an analogy here. The GI Bill for the military.
Yeah.
People, they hear that and they think it's only for college, but you can also use it for trade schools. I don't know if people know that.
Okay, I didn't know.
So like with the Florida prepaid or the ABLE, parents can use it for any kind of schooling.
Right.
Not just college.
So Florida prepaid, I would imagine, yes. But like ABLE is any kind of schooling, trade school, plus all the other stuff that, that you would consider a qualified living expense.
Because, there's this big emphasis on college, which is great, but not everybody's going to go to college.
Right.
And even kids who are like mentally 100% there, it might not be for them either.
I know, it's definitely taking a turn. I'm hearing that more often.
Well, and the thing is like, you get out of college and you're $200,000 in debt. It's like, that's a big nut to pay off. Whereas if you go to trade school, you're probably maybe 6 months and then you're a plumber making $100,000. It's like, that's not bad,
So true.
And AI is not going to do it with plumbers.
Right. Exactly. That's so true. Plumbers, electricians, contractors. It's very true.
Yeah, it's very hard. Whereas, most college degrees nowadays in 5 years, AI is going to find some way to just make that obsolete.
You think about all the computer programmers. It's just nuts.
And then marketers and whatever.
Yep.
Like, I don't know if you use AI. I use it all day long.
I do. Yeah.
And it's just like, it's going to put a lot of people out of business.
I know.
Yeah. So it's good that these programs, you can roll them over into any kind of trade school.
Exactly.
Which is super important.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about Gunnar because I think it helps people to put things in perspective.
Sure.
Like my daughter, she was born neurotypical. Around 2, she had a regression.
Yeah.
Before that, she was meeting all her milestones. I mean, like everything. Then all of a sudden it was just like, wait, what happened?
Yeah.
And was Gunnar your first boy?
Yes. So I have one son.
Okay.
He was same as your daughter, met all the milestones. I guess I'll say, so what I noticed was after and again, this could be triggering for some people. I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but after he received the MMR, they also gave him chickenpox on the same visit. And immediately he developed something called leaky gut. He got conjunctivitis, stopped with eye contact, stopped walking, stopped repeating babbles, things like that. So we saw pretty significant change after that. And it was he's almost 18. So back then, and especially in the state of Florida, there was like murmurs about autism, but like kind of fearful murmurs.
What year was it again?
So he was born in 2008. So this would have been
Murmurs.
Yeah, murmurs. Sorry,
Yes.
this would have been
Right.
2010.
Yeah,
And like I said, I grew up in Connecticut where they have a whole Yale Child Study program on autism. So there are definitely services that were well developed and advanced in more like New England states that I knew about. But nobody really knew how or why. And then there was always like vaccines, autism, there was that murmur. So, I just did what the doctor said. Sure. Oh, they're always out of these vaccines. Just give them the MMR and the chickenpox at the same time. He couldn't handle it, and immediately developed GI issues. And, then it's just kind of, balls to the wall, like, what can we do? Early steps, any kind of early intervention I could find, doing a lot of reading. I mean, I'm lucky I have a very large extended family up north, and they're all big readers. So, to my benefit or demise, I was getting a lot of articles, whether they were good or not, but it was just helpful to kind of, like we were talking about, your own kid. And I was like, there's something wrong with his stomach. Like, it's causing all of this aggression, all these behaviors where he's hurting himself. And, the doctors wouldn't believe me. I went to another doctor, wouldn't believe me. Finally, I see that Yale's doing a research study on gut and autism. And so I just very forcefully demanded I get a referral for a GI, and immediately they found all the issues. And he had celiac disease and gastritis. And, so just, I think, so that was kind of like our beginning journey. And then, since then, there's been, many different therapists in different schools. He developed epilepsy around 13 and a half. And also was diagnosed with Tourette's. And then there's some other GI things he was diagnosed with I won't talk about because it's not fair to him. He's not here to say don't talk about that. But yeah, so I mean, we have now a pretty good team, mostly all at University of Miami. And they're a team because they're all under that umbrella, and they all read the My Chart. And we always call Gunnar Rubik's Cube because it just, something pops up differently, you take a turn and everything's different. So, yeah, that's kind of, it's been our journey.
You mentioned UM.
Yeah.
FIU is also on
Very
board.
Good. Yeah.
So is Miami-Dade College.
Yep.
Did you move to Miami because of the services?
No. My ex-husband's from Miami.
Okay.
So that's how I ended up here. I would probably say the services were more developed where I'm from. But I stayed because I think I wanted to, see how I could help make things better here. And so that was part of doing the LEND program. I've joined the advisory board of FFLN. I think it's
What is FFLN?
It's a Florida Family Leader Network.
Okay, what is that?
So that's a network. I'm going to get all the exactly who funds it wrong. Some acronym that funds it wrong. I think it's Children Family Services Special Healthcare Needs, I believe, something like that. But I went to a seminar or a conference they had last year. I was sent by the LEND program with Paulina from Family Navigator that you should definitely interview. And so they have this conference, and it's basically everybody there is a parent of a child with a disability, not just autism, but they're also all working in the system to help make things better. And so that was kind of my first introduction to say, okay, there's a lot of parents that have turned what they've gone through and turned into helping other families. And so that's kind of what that organization's about. And so so now I'm on the executive committee of that. So we meet once a month, and then we also do different sort of projects to help the community. And then really it's about sharing resources at the end of the day. Like you said, there's so many resources out there. A lot of them are small, so they're not on people's radar, and you're just exhausted trying to find, that's the thing. People are just exhausted. So the ones that really help a lot are the things like the Family Navigators, the cards, the parent to parent, because then they hopefully gather the vendors, and then they're able to kind of vet, and they're able to say, do you have any room? And sort of help be that nucleus for all of the different things that you need to get done.
Yeah, I'm going to make one last plug because we're kind of at the end of the podcast, but the three big ones are UM card, free, parent to parent, free, and also the Advocacy Network on Disabilities, free. And they will set you up with, I guess they call them counselors. Yeah. And like you said, they'll tell you, go here, 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 here. Because, in the old days, you had Google. But goodness,
Right.
who has time for that?
Right.
And then the thing you're looking for might be on page 10 of that website you found, but you don't make it to page 10.
Right. Exactly.
So these groups like, CARD, Parent to Parent, Advocacy Network, they're free. And you look them up online and they got these counselors and just fantastic resources that people, unfortunately, a lot of people don't even know about them, which is kind of hard to believe when you're in the world for a long time.
Right.
But then if you're not as plugged in as you and I are, it kind of makes sense.
You could be working, and so in order to do my plug, ableunited.com is where
It'll be in the show notes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, ableunited.com. And again, actually, all of those resources we've talked about, they all do know about ABLE. We've done trainings for them and trainings for the staff as well as the families. So, and it's a pretty easy website.
They've made it as easy as possible.
So easy. Yeah, and you can take the eligibility quiz, which is essentially, do you have a diagnosis or does your child have a diagnosis?
Great.
An email and a...
Yeah, they've actually made being Able United ready very easy, because like APD is like forever and you got to prove that your kid's like in a terrible situation, whereas Able's pretty easy.
It's like do you have a diagnosis? You don't have to upload any kind of honor system. Exactly. You don't have to upload a diagnosis. You don't need a doctor's note, nothing like that. Exactly.
Right. Well, Phoebe, I've got 3 last questions I want to ask you before we wrap it up. Okay. So the first one is, what do you want Gunner's financial life to look like when he's 30?
I mean, I'd love for him to be as independent as possible. As I mentioned, we kind of started this new communication method that's turning out to be spelling to communicates, turning out to show me how smart he really is. And so I'd really love for him to be able to have a purposeful employment, whether that's in a closed-in setting or working for somebody else. And I'd like him to have, just dignity and independence and not have to always be relying on somebody else to sort of pay his bills.
Yeah, that would be super nice.
Yeah.
And what do you want his financial life to look like when he's 60?
I would love him to have a retirement fund. I think my big hope for him is that he's independent and able to communicate his needs and living in a community with, relationships and friends and able to kind of take a vacation if he wants to take a vacation. Have the money to be able to do that. And I don't want him to have to worry, about medical bills, things like that.
I'm curious because Miami-Dade County is super expensive. Do you see him being in Dade County all his life, or maybe moving somewhere more, inexpensive?
That's a good question.
Because there's nothing wrong with that either.
Yeah. So tomorrow I tour Casa Familia.
Okay. Which is beautiful, but limited.
Limited. Yeah. So my dream, to be honest with you, is to build a farm here in Florida, probably in Homestead. Been looking at land already, and it would be a live-work community. I've been touring farms in the U.S. for a few years and researching them, speaking to different directors. I found one in Ohio called Bittersweet Farms, and they have a really good model specifically for kids like my son that need sort of movement and physical activity to help regulate their motor. And they have, like Medicaid waivers are paying, Social Security, they get private donations, corporate donations. They're very involved in the community. So that's kind of something, that's my dream right now.
Great. Well, thank you for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And Able United will be in the show notes. If people want to find you or Able, they can find it super easy.
Okay, great.
Well, let's turn to the camera. We'll sign off.
Okay.
This has been the Autism Podcast with Phoebe St. Germain Fellows from Able United, or Ambassador of Able United.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again next time.